the only social you get is walking in between classes. 100 flights of stairs. I mean, it's a lot of film work. At D1, they have their jaw jacking, you go to school and you play football.
What's going on, y'all? I have an incredible guest coming on the show today who's going to share his Division I experience. He's going to share his experience coming from a 5A high school in the Dallas, Texas area, more specifically Grapevine, Texas, where he went from there to a Division II school where he redshirted and then later played as a redshirt freshman. Things wasn't going his way, so he decided to transfer. He was in between two different junior colleges where one had gave somebody his position, so he wound up at Foothills Junior College in the San Francisco area at the last minute. From there, he had a real good season and winding up signing with Oklahoma State. He's going to share his experience being an Oklahoma State Cowboy, but more importantly, he's going to share the global recruiting process. From there, we'll get into what it's like being inside of the locker room, his first training camp, what it's like redshirting, while at Oklahoma, Grant's going to discuss what it was like being a part of their offseason strength and conditioning program. You as a student athlete, he's going to share his experiences studying film and preparing week to week. What it's like on game day, coming out of that tunnel, seeing 60 to 65,000 fans in the stadium. By the end of the show, we get into discussing the collegiate classroom experience and the expectations. What is stress like? How much time do you have for social life? So by the end of this, if you're a student athlete, if you're in high school right now, if you're a sports parent, if you're a coach, if you're a strength and conditioning coach, a personal trainer working with student athletes, this is going to be a great listen for you. And I would encourage you all to share this with your student athletes. If you're a student athlete, listen to this. This is going to be one that you can listen to and take some gems from. And I would almost say that this is a timeless episode. So do me a favor, head over to iTunes at Sports Mastery, rate this show 5 stars, leave us a rating, leave us a review. I want to thank Grant again for taking the time to come on to the Sports Mastery podcast. Nevertheless, stay tuned and check out this show. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. I know your time is precious, so we're going to get right into today's show. In today's show, we're going to be interviewing and talking with Grant Newell, former Oklahoma State Cowboy. He's going to share with us his Division I experience. I want to welcome Grant Newell to the show. Grant, tell us about what you're up to today.
Yeah, so I am currently running Break the Box Training, which is a sports training organization in Dallas, Texas area, specifically Grapevine. And right now we're training high school athletes, a few middle school athletes, and mainly football. But we're open to training all sports, but we just want to teach the mechanics and fundamentals to prevent injuries and help enhance sports performance.
I'm probably involved with about 15 to 20 different Facebook groups when it comes to podcasting. I saw a sports post in one of the networks, and I know Grant Newell had commented on it, so I thought I would reach out to him, learning that he had played ball at Oklahoma State. What did you play receiver or were you tight end, Grant?
I was a wide receiver. I only 6 foot, so didn't quite make the cut for tight end.
Got you. So tell us about your process getting to Oklahoma State University.
Oh man, that was a journey. So coming out of high school, I was heavily recruited as a sophomore when I started at a 5A, which was at that time the biggest in the area. And I was getting a bunch of notoriety, a bunch of notice from schools. And then right before my junior season, I broke my tailbone. And it unfortunately hindered my season. I didn't get to play much my junior year. So my recruiting went down a lot. Right before my senior year, I got healthy again and played really well and was able to get a preferred walk-on spot at Abilene Christian. So I signed my letter of intent to Abilene Christian out of high school. And then that's where I spent my redshirt year and my redshirt freshman year there before they got a new coaching staff, and I decided to leave for junior college. So I went to junior college out in Foothills, California. So it's right about 30 minutes outside of San Francisco. And I played one season out there before going to Oklahoma State as a preferred walk-on. I turned down a scholarship offer from Texas A&M Commerce and Texas A&M Kingsville, and so I decided I wanted to go do the D1 experience. And the coaches at Oklahoma State were gracious enough to give me a spot, and yeah, man, it was a long journey to get there, but it was a fun journey, that's for sure.
So tell us about some of the were there like some times where you were down on yourself or you were in doubt? How did you get through the tough periods along the journey getting to Oklahoma and in fulfilling that experience?
First of all, I'm founded in my faith, and so my faith definitely played a lot into it. God was there for me and kept encouraging me the whole time. And for me, it was just believing that He had a plan through all of it. At Abilene Christian, the coaches told me that I was never going to play, that I was never going to see the field, and that I just
How
be
did
on scout team.
how did that make you feel?
Man, like at that point, I was devastated. Like I was like, "Oh man, it's over. I'm never gonna get to play again, and this is just where it's gonna end." And that's when, I talked with my parents and I talked to my brother, and they were like, "Yeah, I think you got to give junior college a shot. You still got 1 year left before junior college eligibility runs out." So, from there, I reached out to a coach I knew at Navarro Junior College, which is in Texas, and he told me, I had a spot, and so I was excited about that. And about a week or so before I was supposed to arrive at campus, he told me that I no longer had that spot. The ACU, since they had moved up to D1 AA, I counted as a D1 transfer, and there's a transfer rule that they can only get 5, and they had already hit
Oh
5.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a tough shot. So here I am, middle of June, with nowhere to go. I have no school to play for next season. So I pretty much at that point was like, yeah, it's probably a wrap. But thankfully, by the grace of God, he felt bad about it, and so he had a coach who he knew out in California at Foothills, who was actually Jerry Rice's receiver coach out there. So I got
Okay.
to meet Jerry Rice. When I first showed up, he was training Jerry Rice's son, and Jerry Rice was out there with him. So I got to meet him. But yeah, he got me that opportunity out in California, and showed up at the end of July. Uh, Semesters are weird out there. They don't start school until like the end of September. So I was still able to get into school and everything like that. And yeah, it was a crazy experience to get to junior college. And once I finally got there, I got hurt again, and I hurt my hamstring.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it was just one after another, just getting hit back to back to back, and thinking, man, this is gonna be it. And I was out there 26 hours away from anybody I knew not a soul out there. And so I didn't start or really play for the first 3 games. And until I finally, convinced the coaches we were playing terrible, and they put me in, and I started playing really well, and I finally earned a starting spot back and led the team in receiving yards and touchdowns. And so by the end of the season, and then that's when I got a call from a guy who had recruited me out of high school, who was the receivers coach at Oklahoma State, and asked me to come out on a visit. And and I absolutely loved it. My dad went to OU, so it was it was a nice little visit right there. My dad, thought he'd throw in. When was the last time you guys beat OU? And so it was quite the interesting visit, that's for sure, with my dad. But I mean, it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. And he basically, he was like, hey, you know what? If you want to come in here, I'm not going to give you a job, but if you want to compete, there's an opportunity to compete here. And so I jumped at the opportunity to compete.
Right. You know what I appreciate about hearing your story so far, and I also talk about this in my sports mastery program, which includes coaching, but more so mentorship, and you having a team, and that including like your parents and your brother, where you always have somebody to talk to that can that's your fans, but can also be objective at the same time, but then can just listen when you're going through hardship. So I find that to be really a blessing listening to your story. You get to Oklahoma. I know this Texas plays arguably some of the best football in the country coming out of high school.
Yeah.
So you get back to Oklahoma. First of all, before we get to that, what was the junior college experience like? Like I'm sure you with guys from around the country, California, guys similar to your experience. I've heard from other guys that have played junior college football that it could be almost tougher than the Division I experience because everybody is fighting and clawing to get to the next level. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I'm one of those rare cases that I have experienced, D2, JUCO, and D1, and so yeah, I've kind of experienced the different levels that there are. And
Yes.
JUCO, you really find out who the dogs are or not, and
Right.
you figure out how bad you really want it because there's nobody in the stands, there's no notoriety, there's pretty much nothing. It's you go to school and you play football. And I mean, like, there's summer practices you practice in pads. And so it's like, it's real football. And I mean, I found out real quickly how bad I really wanted it because everybody out there is fighting for their last opportunity. And that's a difference between, you go to a 4-year university, people at the beginning are like, oh, I got 4 years. And then you get to junior college and it's like, this is my last shot. If I don't make it work here, then it's over. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say it's possibly more competitive as far as getting to play and the opportunities that come with it than the D1 is at times. Because I mean, we lived 6 guys in a 1 bedroom. At times there were more than 6 guys, but in California, that's how you got to do it to keep rent down. And so, we had guys stacked up in there, sleeping on the floor, all sorts of stuff just to play football.
Yeah, I'm laughing, but it's not funny because I work with a lot of kids, past and present, that want to go D1, that's the ultimate dream. And I really feel this is some tremendous information. If you're not an NCAA qualifier, or you might be a 6-foot linebacker, or if you might be on the smaller side or the slower side coming out of high school and you have to go to a junior college, these are some things that you could, that the student athlete can expect. It's going to be a tough road, but I think you're one of the guys, and there's been other cases, but we're talking about you right now that you overcame that, so you wind up at Oklahoma State University. It's a different environment. What's the locker room like? Guys jaw jacking, giving each other a hard time, ribbing each other with the smack talk. Tell us about that, and how do you survive that in that kind of a scenario where you're around some of the best athletes in the country?
Well, I'll tell you, the smack talking is worse in junior college than D1. In D1, it's more of a team atmosphere, and in JUCO, you have more of an individualistic atmosphere to where guys are all about themselves. So this, and I'm gonna beat you. You ain't gonna play. All this sort of stuff. And
Uh-huh.
uh, as compared to D1, man, everybody's friends. Majority of people. I won't say everybody, but majority of people, you're friends with, and you'll go hang out with and stuff like that. But there is definitely some trash talking. There's definitely a lot of trash talking for sure. But it's a lot more team atmosphere. Like everybody's got each other's best interests at heart, as compared to in junior college. Sometimes you have to watch your back.
Yes. So when you look at both experiences in the locker room, social life, and like taking criticism, whether it's smack talk or constructive criticism, how did you handle that on a psychological level, as far as like not taking things like too personal?
Yeah. So I mean, like I mentioned earlier, my faith had a lot to play with that, and really staying in my Bible and making sure that I was the right person for the job.
Yes.
But as far as my mental, I've kind of gotten into this sphere of not really caring what anybody else thinks. So, if somebody said I had a trash day at practice, I don't care what you think. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, if I didn't have a great day at practice, I didn't let anybody else say anything to me. I didn't care what you think. I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to have a great day. But if I sit there and I listen to you, then I'm going to come back tomorrow and have a bad day again. And in JUCO, that can mean your scholarship offer. So you really have to get in this mindset of not caring about what anybody else thinks. People are going to talk trash. People are going to try and put you down. But you have to get in this mental world where you're just zoned in. You're focused on yourself, what you can do to get better, and how you can help better the team.
I like that, because I've worked with a number of kids where they're starting to get into the recruiting process, where I started working with them, in the middle of their seventh grade year, and now they're like at the end of their sophomore years, and they had some incredible sophomore they played some incredible sophomore football, and then finished this they're finishing the year out, with some great track performances. So some offers are starting to come, but at times they hear the you're not tall enough, you're not fast enough, and things like that. And I'm telling them, you still have 2 more years to go. Why are you worried about what other people think?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I believe, you put the numbers up, they'll come. It doesn't matter about size. It doesn't matter about speed. I mean, one of the guys at Oklahoma State, Tyreek Hill, was short, but man, he put up the numbers and people came calling, and now he's one of the best in the NFL. So, I mean, as far as when you hear size, it doesn't matter, or you're too small, you're too short, you're too slow. If you put up the numbers, they'll call.
So you get to Oklahoma. What was that first training camp like?
Oh.
Going in the summer training, the 2 days.
Yeah, so for me, I had to sit out the spring semester because I didn't end up signing on signing day because of the D2 offers that I had, and I contemplated it, and I didn't really feel like those were the right choice, so I didn't sign. And it wasn't until late spring that I got my opportunity at Oklahoma State. So I showed up during summer, and I showed up June 1st, and my transcripts hadn't gotten there. So I couldn't start training June 1st. So I went up and I saw my receivers coach, and I said, "Hey, what do I need to do to be ready? Because I need to be ready to go, because at D1, they have a certain number that they can take to camp. It's 105. And if you don't train during the summer, you're probably not going to be in that 105. So I said, I need to be ready come July, or else I'm not going to make the 105.
Right.
So they had this lake in Stillwater called Boomer Lake. It's a 3 mile run around. And he goes, "All right, you need to run around Boomer Lake, and you need to run around it in 19 minutes, which is crazy because I'm not a long distance runner. But his thing was, we run stadiums every Friday, and if I don't finish first in stadiums, I'm not going to make fall camp. So for a walk on, that's not gonna happen, Being first out of guys that have started for 2-3 years, that's gonna be hard. So I went out there and I started running. My first day, I got like a 25 minute it took me, and it was rough. But I kept pushing the whole month of June. I finally got in the weight room, finally got into the summer program, and I was beaten. I got put with all the freshmen, but I beat all the freshmen by about 3 or 4 laps.
Uh-huh.
I got put with the new incomers and killed it. So I killed it enough to get put in the 105 for fall camp, which was a big push, and it was a late call. I got put in late, but yeah, it was hard. The summer workouts will really get you, that's for sure.
Yeah, so you make the 105, you start training camp, so this is like, are you a sophomore at this time or a junior?
No, this is my junior year.
So you're a junior. What where are you at on the depth chart, or are you a junior practicing with the scout team, or are you practicing with the main group?
Yeah, so my first year, I got put on scout team. We were stacked at receiver. They traveled like 13 or 14. An insane amount of depth at receiver. And so for me, I kind of figured, I was hoping to push, for the travel squad, which
Right.
is 70 guys. They travel. I wasn't able to make that group. So I played on scout team my whole first year, which, if anything, if JUCO doesn't test your will to play, being on a scout team will definitely test your will for how bad you want to play.
So you get into your senior season, and it sounds like some things changed.
Yeah, so basically going into spring workouts and everything, I said, look, this is my last shot to make a push at it. And so, during the spring, I said, I need to get with some of these guys who have been starters for 4 years, and I need to work with them. I need to work with them, after workouts, before workouts. I need to be doing footwork. I need to do one-on-ones against them, and I need to be killing them. Like, because what a lot of people don't realize is if you decide to be a walk-on, you have to be 2 times as good as a scholarship player to get some playing time. Because if you're just as good as a scholarship player, they're going to choose a scholarship player every time because they're paying for them.
Right.
So for me, I was like, I have to be toasting these guys every single time because I have to be so much better. So I got with Jordan Stearns and Ramon Richards and those guys and started going one-on-ones against them. And, of course they're going to beat me. They've been playing Big 12 football for 4 years. And so they beat me sometimes, but, I got mine as well. So I started to gain some confidence in that and that I could play at that level. And in the weight room, did really well. Then come spring ball, I just went out there and just started playing really well. Got some reps with the ones and mainly with the twos. With the graduation of some guys left. And so I was, pushing for that travel squad, pushing for playing time, that's for sure. And at the end of spring ball, my receivers coach told me that I was the most improved player on the offense that year. And so, that was pretty cool to see the hard work paying off. But it was definitely just the beginning before summer workouts, that's for sure.
Right. So you get into the senior season. What's it like coming out of that home tunnel, and you're playing in what do y'all see, like 90,000 or something like that?
So at Boone Pickens, they see probably a little over 60. It's not real big, but man, it is compact and it is loud. It gets real loud in there, that's for sure.
How do you, like, coming from JUCO, and that first time, I know I'm sure you would suit up during your junior year. What would you say to the young student athlete who might be coming in as a freshman, highly touted, 4-star, 5-star athlete, never been there before, but probably could end up playing as a freshman? What do you say to that kid, to prepare them, or if you had any words of wisdom for them to get ready for a crowd like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say basically don't pay attention to it. As hard as that sounds, if you get too caught up in the crowd and all the people that are there, you'll get messed up real quickly. You have to kind of sit there and act like it's another practice. It's like just another high school game. You have to focus on your teammates and who you're playing. But really, I think what it comes down to is film work during the week. If you're confident in what you've seen and what you've studied all week long, then you're not going out there worried. I think if you're a little bit worried, then you maybe start to pay attention to the crowd. I noticed that my first week I came out and I wasn't really prepared film wise, and I was kind of nervous about what I was doing out there. And then since I was nervous about not wanting to mess up in front of everybody, I pay attention to everybody. So when I wasn't worried about messing up or what he was going to do, I was able to go out there and play free and play loose.
Speaking of film, talk to the student athlete and even parents and some of the high school coaches when you get to a Division 1 level, like the importance and the expectations, that revolve around film study and team meetings.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them. Those will take up probably more time than games and practices will. Doing film work on your own. We'll have team meetings that'll last for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have special teams meeting, and then you'll go and have receiver meetings or whatever position you play, and then you'll go out to practice, and then you'll come back and you'll have meals, and then you probably, if you're playing, then you'll come back. You'll come back and watch the practice from that day and watch some film on the opponent that you're playing. So, I mean, it's a lot of film work. There's little practice compared to the film work. But yeah, I mean, if you go out there unprepared, at that level, they will make you pay for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to go back a little bit because you get to Oklahoma State University, you play that first season is over. Tell me about the strength and conditioning program and your expectations being at a Division 1 and what's required of you. If you're training 4 or 5 days a week and what's mandatory for the student athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one thing that you'll find out at the D1 level is the time requirements that they put on you. There's definitely a lot of those, depending on what level they put you at. You'll be at. We had 6:30, 1:30, and 3:30 workouts. So the 6:30 a.m. group was for varsity guys if they wanted, and then the 1:30 group would be freshmen. Then 3:30 was for the varsity guys that didn't want to go at 6:30 a.m. And so that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was our off day, then Thursday, Friday. And so we trained 4 days a week, and those workouts would be, between an hour and an hour and a half, and it's intense. There's no walking. It is straight working out for an hour to an hour and a half. And, there's loud music playing. The coaches are yelling at you, getting after you. There's lots of competing, that's for sure. But it is very intense. If you leave without sweating, you were cheating the workout, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, coming in on some of the more compound movements and technical movements, what are you expected to know already?
So for the incomers and freshmen and stuff, they'll usually have their own group at the 1:30 group. And for the first, couple of weeks or so, the coaches are just teaching them technique. So technique in the cleans, technique in the overhead snatch, and squats and bench. Pretty much every lift, they're teaching techniques and how to do it so that everybody is on the same page and nobody gets hurt.
I like that, and it's interesting that you say that because I teach the powerlifting movements. I teach all of the Olympic lifting movements, and I've started kids with their own body weight and graduated them to a PVC pipe, and
Yeah.
then to a 15-pound technique bar, and then to a real bar, a 45-pound bar, and to see them grow over time. It's a beautiful thing when they can get to a college strength and conditioning program, and it's not much that they have to really show them when it comes to like those 9 to 10 basic barbell movements that you're definitely going to encounter.
Right. Yeah, because in Division I college sports, you're mainly going to do the compound movements. There's very little of your accessory exercises. You're not going to have many of those because they want explosive power and speed. So you got your box jumps, you got squats, you got overhead snatch, you got hang cleans, you got jerk press, you got bench incline, and dumbbell incline, dumbbell bench, and that's about it. Then you got some lat pulls and pull-ups and stuff, but a lot of it is your simple, or what we would classify as your simple compound movements that everybody knows.
Yes, that's geared to get you stronger and more explosive.
Right.
That should transfer to the field to get you faster.
Right.
I want to switch lanes with you, Grant. And what was the social life like at Oklahoma State University, or how much time would you have for a social life?
Yeah, I was about to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. There's not too much social time, especially during the season. During the season, pretty much your social time is limited to Mondays, which were your off days, and Saturday nights after the games, and that was about it. During the week, you got workouts at 6:30 a.m. Then you got classes from 8 to noon. Then you get to eat a little bit of food and stuff before meetings. Will start at 1, and then we'll have meetings all the way up until practice at about 4. Then you'll practice from about 4 to 6. Come in and shower. Then you'll have meal, and then as soon as you get done with the meal, you'll go over to the academic center, do your homework till about 9 or 10 o'clock, and then by then you're worn out and you got to get back up at 6:30, so you go into bed.
Right.
So I mean, really, the only social you get is walking in between classes.
Yeah. Speaking of the classroom, what did you learn as far as like the difference between high school expectations in the classroom and then collegiate expectations, especially at a place like Oklahoma?
Yeah, so I mean, really in high school, it was pretty much left up to you. Once you get into college, you have somebody who's going to be making sure that you're in the right classes. We had class checkers, so people that would show up and say, all right, you need to be here at this time. If you're not at class, you had Stairmaster, because there would be a class checker and they would report back to Coach Gundy. And so you didn't want to miss class, or else you'd be on the Stairmaster. So yeah, the expectation is a lot higher, and there's a lot more writing on it, and a lot more people checking in on you than in high school.
Yeah, tell us about the guys who chose not to go to class, who decided to party, who would entertain the women a little bit too much. What happened? What did you see happen to those guys?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you saw because all that extracurricular stuff, believe it or not, does take an effect on your body, and over time, it definitely, you'll see it come out on the field. And a lot of times, you'll still be able to play really well, but you'll have injuries. A lot of soft tissue injuries will come about from it, which a lot of people don't see. But playing at that high of a level, your body will get drained from it. And then, if you missed class and stuff like that, then or you showed up late for a workout, you had Stairmaster, 40. I think it was like 100 flights of stairs. I mean, it was something ridiculous. They were on there for like 45 minutes. So I mean, they'd be dying. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times some of those guys didn't last. They quit the program or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't turn out well a lot of the time.
Yeah, before we close out, Grant, again, I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing your experience. Looking back, what would you do different?
Man, I'll be honest. I probably wouldn't have done anything different. I really, I'm a big proponent of, the way your life was lived is the way it should be. If I had any advice, I would say, if you have your one goal of going to Division 1, and you don't have any Division 1 offers out of high school, go to junior college right away. Don't try and settle for D2 and be disappointed in yourself and frustrated with yourself like I was. Uh, you need to do some self reflection and figure out what it is you really want. Because some people just want to play football, and D2 will do fine. But for those of you that are like, I want to play D1 no matter what, then I would suggest going junior college right off the bat if you don't have any D1 offers, and test the waters from there. Because I mean, worst case, you end up back at D2, but best case, you get another 2 years to show D1 schools that, hey, you know what, I deserve it. And there's been a lot of great players come out of JUCO. I mean, Cam Newton is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he went JUCO. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid to go to junior college.
Right, I like that, man. So you definitely lived like the last chance you experience.
Yeah, I was pretty excited when that came out.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, man. I watched both seasons. Are they coming out with a third? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I heard they might be doing a different school if they were going to do it again.
Yeah, I think I heard that too. The last thing I wanted to ask you, man, is there anything else that you would want to say to the student athlete that might be a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star that has aspirations of playing like Division 1 football? What would you say to that kid right now?
Man, I think my best advice would be to get hungry and then stay hungry. I think that's the hardest thing. Is a lot of people get hungry, and they get there and they don't stay hungry. They get caught up in, like you said, the girls, the atmosphere, the crowd, everything that comes with it. You get a bunch of free equipment and shoes and shirts and all that sort of stuff that comes with it all. But if you say, forget it, I'm not going to focus on all that, I'm just going to play football, then that's my advice, is to don't get too big or think you arrived, but stay hungry once you get there. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself back at home after 4 years.
What would you say to the sports parent that's like really highly supportive of their student athletes?
I would say don't put too much pressure on them. Kids feel a lot of pressure that they put on themselves already, especially high level athletes. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and the added pressure from our parents. If we have a bad game, I think just love throughout the whole process. Whether we have a good game, a bad game, whether we get the D1 offer or not, just love.
What would you say to the high school coach that could better help their athlete transition to the next level, especially like a Division 1 or Division 1 AA level? Looking back on from that transition from high school to college.
For starters, don't tell a player whether or not they are D1 or not. Let the Division 1 coaches decide that for them. Because that happened to me in high school. I got told that I would never play Division 1. I wasn't good enough for a Division 1 school, and so that kind of puts a damper on it. So I'd say never put limitations on your players like that. Let the school coaches, the Division 1 school coaches, make those decisions. And then secondly, I'd say make sure that kids are doing proper technique. So a lot of stuff that's done in high school, the college coaches have to spend time reteaching and unteaching that stuff, like footwork. I would say high school coaches go visit colleges. I would know we had a lot of high school coaches that would come and watch our practices. Take that stuff back with you to prepare those players for college whenever they get there, so that they don't have to spend time reteaching it.